Hey guys, it's Brandon. First video in a little while. First chess video in, I don't know, maybe a week or something. I just wanted to go over a game that I played on ChessCube. Well, not on ChessCube, on the free internet chess server a little while ago. And I was playing the black pieces. This is a really exciting game. And 1e4. And those of you who have been following my chess progress and my videos on this channel may be surprised by the move I played next, because it's not something that I've played much before now, but I've been trying to incorporate it into my repertoire, and that's the Sicilian defense, where black plays 1c5. So I've been studying the Sicilian Khan variation, which is maybe a little bit less aggressive, but less theoretical than a lot of the other open Sicilians, like the Najdorf or the Dragon. You don't have to follow as much theory, but it's not quite as aggressive for black, so it's somewhere in between. So knight f3, e6, this is the move in the Khan. In the other open Sicilians, you see d6. e6, d4, this is the open Sicilian. And this move marks the Khan a6, preparing this move, queen c7, stopping any of this stuff coming in at any point. So it's a little bit like a Najdorf in that sense. Okay, this is okay, knight c3, queen c7. And this looks a little strange because you're told usually never to bring your queen out before, but this is in fact the main line of the Sicilian Khan. The moves b6 have stopped these knights from coming. A6 has stopped these knights from coming in and harassing the queen, and the queen's controlling this square e5, so that this knight can be developed. Whereas in the other types of Sicilians, like the Najdorf and the Dragon, the pawn is on d6. Well, okay, so the knight can't just come out right now because just e5 happens. And in the other Sicilians, the pawn is already on d6, stopping e5. So that's why it's possible to bring this knight out so quick. But in the Khan, you have to prepare this knight coming out. So it's a little bit of a slow system for black. White gets a lead in development for sure. This is the main line. Okay, now the knight can come out because f5 is not a threat. Castles, bishop e7. h3. This move is a little questionable. I don't think this is really necessary. It's a typical prophylactic move, but not particularly necessary in this case. b5, a3. This one, though, looks like it wouldn't be typical. It would be slow, but it actually is important because it stops b4 from white, which will chase away this knight at the right time. Combined with this bishop and this knight putting pressure on the e4 pawn, chasing this knight away could hang this pawn if it's not at the right moment, if white's not careful. So this move is played just to try to hold back any b4 stuff chasing away this knight, which is a key defender of this pawn. So bishop b7, king h1. This is a standard prep move for f4, which is what you see in most aggressive variations against the Sicilian Khan. f4, just getting the king off of this diagonal. So d6. One thing that f4 is doing is threatening e5 because the queen is no longer enough to guard the e5 square, so that's why it's d6. And now we've sort of transposed into a Najdorf Scheveningen. Black has these pawns here on e6 and d6, the small center, and we'll just sort of wait and see what white decides to do in the center and try to counteract at some point with d5 or something like that. So he played queen e2, just putting more pressure to try to get this breakthrough. Knight bd7, trying to break the e5 pawn, and then knight f3. This is a pretty common maneuver in the Khan as well. Just getting all pieces. I think at this point, does white have enough to push through? Takes. Yeah, white does have enough to push through e5 at this point if he wanted it, but Rook AC8, a pretty natural Sicilian move. From the open Sicilian, black tries to find counterplay, of course, on the open C file. So bishop D2. I think usually the bishop goes out to E3 in this variation, but I can't, it's not like losing or anything, so I can't really criticize that. Knight to C5, another common move. The knight, by the way, went to D7 instead of C6 to keep this bishop open on this diagonal, and so as not to, when it's sitting here, block any counterplay possibilities on the C file. So rook AE1, he's just overprotecting the E5 point, and rook FD8. This move was played because I think the rook probably belongs here, where if E5 comes, D takes E, getting rid of this somewhat weak pawn, and then the knight will have to move, but then the rook will be on this open file. So I thought that looked like a good spot for the rook to move. And also, if he doesn't go with E5, instead plays F5, this move could support a D5 break for me in the future. And actually, this is sort of where white has to make a choice. One possible variation is to play E5. Oops. Is to play F5, excuse me, where black usually responds E5, and will play for this D5 break at some point. Meanwhile, white will try to play these pawns down the board and try to mate on the king side. With the setup that white's gone with, he pretty much has to play on the king side no matter what. And black, in turn, will try to defend on the king side and look for this this pawn break D5. This sort of setup with white is like a where white pushes these pawns down the board. It's kind of like a Kira's attack against the Scheveningen. Anyway, my opponent did not play F5. He played E5 here. And this gives me a chance to liquidate a weak pawn. And it also opens up this diagonal. So there are some drawbacks to this move, but on the plus side, white gets a little bit more space and chases my knight away from defense of the king. Okay, knight G5. My opponent's going for it. This is really the only plan that that white has in this case, and it's pretty well known in these open Sicilian type of positions that if white fails to mate on the king side, black is going to have play down the line. So at this point, I just decided to take off this bishop. Knight takes D3, and grab the bishop pair, and stop any pressure on F7, and just sort of trade down attacking pieces, because it's pretty obvious my opponent intends to attack, and when you're under attack, it's good to trade pieces. He played C takes D3, but quickly I calculated queen takes D3, bishop takes D5, G5, bishop takes G5, and knight F4, double attacking the queen, and if the move bishop takes D8, I was planning knight takes D3, bishop takes C7, knight takes E1, rook takes E1, rook takes C7, and this of course liquidates everything. And I don't know, I thought this endgame looked pretty even. Might have some chances. Okay, I'm going to have to make an escape square for my king or play rook to D8 at some point, but I have a very, very nice bishop. And I thought I'd have some chances in this endgame. When I actually looked, the computer said that after queen takes D3, bishop takes G5, knight F4, bishop takes D8, I actually had much better bishop takes G2, check, king H2, rook takes D8, hitting the queen. All this I didn't see, but this is a computer line. Queen to E3, bishop takes F1, getting the exchange back, queen takes H4, and then the bishop comes out, where when all is shaken out, I have control of the D file, I have an extra pawn, and white's king is looking a little silly. So that would have been the case. I mean, these are all hypotheticals, but just some interesting lines, because after knight takes D3, he didn't play queen takes D3, he played C takes D3. And I was pretty happy with this move, because it gave me nice C file, and this D5 square is now a hole These pawns are, there's 3 pawn islands now, so any endgame is going to favor me a little bit just because my pawn structure is better, and of course the bishop remains on this nice diagonal. So anyway, it's my move, and there is some pressure on f8. I wasn't sure about taking the knight yet, so I just played rook back to f8. Okay, maybe it was a bit of a tempo loss because I played rook to d8 and then back to f8, but not such a big deal. So he played queen g4, really going for it. And I just thought that you know, I don't mind giving up one of my bishops to sort of slow down his attack, because I'm going to have the better endgame here. So bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, and the threat is bishop to h6. The threat is bishop to h6, because this pawn can't take the bishop because it'll be pinned by the queen, and I'd have to play something like f5 or something, or f6, something so the queen can guard laterally, or maybe even g6, giving up an exchange to try to defend the checkmate threat on g7. I didn't really want to deal with that, so I just sidestepped the pin. So now if bishop to h6, I can just take it, because the pawn's no longer pinned to the king. And he made a bit of a mistake here. He played the move knight to e4, threatening to come in on this d6 square. And if this move came in, that would probably be pretty good for his position. Immediately, at the very least, winning this bishop back if I don't do something because of the fork on the rook and the bishop. But and I spent a while, like a little bit of time. This was a 1-hour game, by the way. A little bit of time figuring out what I was going to do with this knight on d6 before I realized, well, the pawn is hanging on the e file. Like the e5 pawn is just hanging, and it kind of looks dangerous because the knight can move, discovering an attack on the queen. But in reality, I calculated, and there's nothing really seriously threatening about it. At least I was pretty sure. Knight takes, so I just took the pawn. Queen takes e5, and the move he played was knight f6. Thankfully, this isn't a check because I moved my king out of the way. So if my king was still here, this would have won the queen because it would have been with check, and then the queen falls. But I thought maybe he could have played better with knight to c5, but I thought queen c7 was just fine if that was the case. And I'm just up a pawn. And this was actually an important pawn, you know, stopping a lot of moves where I could have tried to, you know, give some defense and giving him some space. So yeah, he played knight to f6, and I was actually shocked to see that the computer actually recommends the move that this arrow is drawing here. When I checked after the game afterwards with Houdini, the computer said, just take this pawn. This is what the computer, and you're up 2 pawns here for nothing. It looks crazy because white has 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5 pieces coming into the attack on my king, and I have, maybe you could say, 1, 2 defenders. So this didn't strike me as a position, like I didn't even consider taking this pawn because it just looks so dangerous. But in reality, the computer is objective and says, yeah, there's 3, 4 pieces attacking your king, but there are actually no threats. So just go ahead and take the material while it's there. And it's kind of funny. There's actually no threats at the moment in this position. So I could have taken the pawn, but what I played after knight f6 instead was queen c7. Just, you know, grabbing the file and keeping my queen around just in case I need her sometime down the road. You know, I was just like, okay, I've got a pawn. Now it's just a matter of trading down, trying to defend this attack, and then my endgame is much better. I mean, I'd be the only one playing for a win in that case. So white really has to play for a mate. And he came up with this move, queen to h5, attacking the h7 pawn. And the idea is after knight takes f6, pawn takes f6 is impossible. Oops. Pawn takes f6 is not possible because of check and then mate. with the queen on g5, and the queen and bishop mating the king. Knight takes f6, rook takes f6, and then, of course, the same idea. If g takes f6, again, this is mating. So it's looking like it could be a little bit dangerous here. You know, I can't take this pawn. There's 3 pieces hanging around my king, coming in for the attack. But in reality, I had a very nice move that, the computer keeps giving it away. I was going to stop and see if you guys could find that move, but the move that the computer suggests and the one that I actually played in the game was queen to g3. And the point of this move is that thanks to this awesome bishop, which is now just a monster pointing at his king, I'm threatening checkmate and this rook. And in reality, he's got no coordination. It looks scary, but he has no coordination on any squares in my position. So he has to do something. He could play queen here to try to guard, but at the very least that loses just a bishop, and then this rook is hanging, or even if the queen goes back, this rook could be hanging also. But the other point of this queen g5 move is that once he defends the mate, which he did with rook to g1, I'm free to take this rook, because after this check comes in and king h8, the queen is now on the g file, preventing any mates here on g7, and I'm just up a rook. So this is actually how the game went. So after queen g3, I don't think there's any defense. I think the game is just over at this point. So he played rook g1, gf, bishop takes f6 check, king to g8, and bishop e5 was the move he played here. And my computer friend is indicating this move, bishop takes g2 check, which is actually mating. I didn't see that in the game. I was just like, okay, I'm a rook up. I'm just going to play queen to g6, trade queens, and just play the rest of this game a whole rook up. Just a whole rook up. And does he even have a pawn for it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, he doesn't even have a pawn for it. So it will just be a whole rook up. And the idea is, the only possible idea he could really have would be to try to swing a rook around here and try to mate with the bishop and the rook on this kingside position. But I was like, I have plenty of time to see that and take measures against that. So he actually resigned after queen g6. But yeah, after bishop e5, this move was actually losing immediately. I didn't bother calculating it, but just another thing, you know, always check all checks in a position to see if maybe you do have a mate. So just to show you guys the possible mate is bishop takes g2 check, only move, rook takes, and then rook here, and then it's just, you know, the king has nowhere to go, so you just have to give your pieces away, and then it's mate. So yeah, that was a really interesting game. Okay, I didn't find the mate at the end, but I'm just up a rook here, and he decided to resign anyway, so I guess we can do a little overview and summary here. We had an open Sicilian con. Okay. A3 stopping b4, which is actually important, even though h3 probably wasn't necessary. Bishop b7. Okay, he prepared and got in f4, d6, just to see what white's doing in the center and remain flexible. Knight bd7, knight f3, rook c8. Okay, knight c5, hitting the bishop. Yeah, it's important that this bishop is at the moment with this piece configuration blocked from going anywhere. So I'm not in any hurry to take the bishop with the knight, because I can always wait until, you know, he has nowhere to go. So he ran with e5, and after this sequence, I took the bishop finally, and played rook to f8 just to guard f7. Snapped off this attacking piece, got out of any potential pins, and made a brave decision, and actually it kind of worked out. So after knight f6, I couldn't believe it. The computer just told me to take on b2, but okay, queen c7. I'm still up a pawn. And queen h4 is just, I guess, a move you would say that loses. Loses is a strong word. I think it's pretty dangerous for now. Maybe right here, the position is still equal with chances for both sides. I'm up a pawn, but maybe he can drum something up. But after knight takes f6, rook takes f6, and g3, queen g3, exclamation mark, which I found after a couple minutes. It's really just over. Black has nothing better than white has nothing better than rook g1, and just go down a piece. So the game ended after queen g6, but there was that mate threat. So different type of game than I usually play. Not a lot of positional consideration going on, a lot of hard calculation, a lot of attack, a lot of aggression, a lot of counterplay. That's how the games go in the Sicilian, and I think I'm going to be playing some more Sicilian from now on, just trying to work that aspect of my game. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.